And we are live. Wow, episode 2 of Lockdown Talks with Benji. Again, wow, thanks so much for those who commented and just sent their opinions on how they thought of the podcast. I thought, that was cool. Thank you guys so much. What I want to be talking about today is the concept of capitalism, tied into actually, what's happening with the lockdown. As you know, there are a lot of businesses that are losing out because of this lockdown, and it's a shame that the economy is going to go down, but it's also a shame that there are people that are more concerned about losing out in money versus those who may be losing their life. So there is a bit of a debate going on whether we're distributing our energy into the right places. But yeah, I guess that's where I'm at. I don't have an opinion. I'm just here to observe and learn like you guys. Alright, okay, let's move into this. Alright, capitalism. What is capitalism, man? Okay, I'm going to read the definition from Investopedia. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. The production of goods and services is based on supply and demand in the general market, known as market economy, rather than through central planning. What basically happens is, at the core of capitalism, right, is paying someone to do something for one price and then selling somebody else, or selling it off to somebody else for a different price. Now, the difference between those two is what we call a profit. And, all of this talk does seem like very, very self-explanatory and just like, yeah, and what? And that's exactly how I felt, like, that's just how the world works. As a kid, going into school, a lot of, people would always ask you, like, what do you want to be? And when we're asked that question, it's always within the context of like what we're exposed to. So we see things such as like firefighters, doctors, lawyers, builders, you name it. So many different things. Marine biologists. And so like those things are cool. It's very it's awesome to be chasing things that you really want to be. But what we don't realize is that these titles are within a capitalist society. Basically, what happens is you're taught to, if you want to be a marine biologist, you're taught that you need to learn biology, you need to learn, physical education. I have no idea. And then from there, you attain a degree, which you pay for, right? And you create all this debt, and then from there you enter into the workforce where you become a marine biologist, where you sell your knowledge, your skills, your trade, whatever you learn, for money coming back to you. Now that's basically the core of what capitalism is. There's definitely like different versions or whatever, but that's how I understand it. And so there's two types of people. There's two types of people within the world of capitalism. There's those who are control, who are in control of the means of production, or like those who own businesses, and then there's those who work under them. Now, the people who own the businesses, they are the ones that will gain more, or actually lose more, if depending on how you see it, within that system. What I'm really keen to delve into is the question whether capitalism is a relatively good system. This isn't saying that, like, this is definitely not a yes or no solution, because I don't know, like, I would love for a revolution to come up where we just say, like, fuck the system, let's create our own, and let's just fucking figure out a way where everybody wins, regardless of where you're born in, regardless of your disability, regardless of the color of your skin. That is a super utopian world that we would all love to live in. The reality is, however, it's not how the world works right now. And that system is being tested right now with the lockdown and all that stuff, you know. We're beginning to realize what is essential and what is non-essential. And I actually see this as an opportunity, as a, I also want to preface this by saying that, like, I'm in no way a library full of knowledge when it comes to capitalism. However, I do have a business with a couple of friends. We've been in business for over 3 years, or coming up to 3 years, but we have a social lens to it. I say social lens because the word capitalism sits in a spectrum, right? Where you have like capitalism and socialism, and then you have like communism, but I won't talk about that today. New Zealand is seen as a mixed economy, right? Where capitalism, pure capitalism, is when there's free market, which basically means the market decides whether your shit is good or not. Actually, no, you can do that in a socialist, could you? But basically, in a capitalist society, you can you own a business, and all dependent on supply and demand, you can increase your price. You make up whatever your workers get or whatever your employees get. That to me is like, holy shit, you're building an empire, but also you're exploiting workers, because if you're getting a profit from that, there's a lot of things that can happen within that, and it's all based on trust, right? We trust that we all want the best for everybody, but we all know it's not like that in reality. And so, you know, when we talk about socialism is like where the state controls, or like the government controls a lot of stuff. And we all know that also can be problematic as well. Too much government intervention can also mean can also strip a lot of I don't know. I don't know too much about that. I don't want to delve in. I don't want to impose too much on my opinion, because I'm still in the learning phase, just like everybody else is here. I was talking with a couple of mates, and we were talking about the card game Presidents and Assholes. I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of you guys would have played it. I've only just learnt that game this year. That is a very strong example of what like capitalism can do in terms of like how you can lose out and how you can win in the game. I think first and foremost, the fact that it's kind of like a game is is problematic in itself. It's like Monopoly. I mean, Monopoly is a like cool game, right? Like you can see your wins on the board game, and you can see how you're becoming a winner, and it like makes you feel really good about yourself in some sort of way. But what we don't realize is that is a pure example on how the foundations of America is, and I'll delve into that too a little bit later. Yeah, Presidents and Assholes. So basically the premise of the game is that you get a set of cards. Whoever had lost the game prior to that game has to give 2 of their best cards to the president, and the arsehole has to give 2 of their worst cards to the arsehole. So there's an exchange going on. The president not only loses out on the shitty cards, but he also gains 2 really good cards. If you were to transfer that model into capitalism, that's the exchange that's happening there is where the president is gaining 2 really good cards, is how I like to see it profit. And then I guess the shitty cards that the arsehole is getting from the president, I can see that as like their labor, right? Yeah, I'm sorry if that's not very clear, but like that's the best that I could do in terms of like seeing how that can be problematic. I mean, there's 2 arguments to this, right? There's like, I worked really hard for my capital, I have the power to do this, and so I'm just going to do it. And that's, I guess, the problem with the system, right? And so that's why you have like policies like minimum wage, because if you give too much power, which is like pure capitalism, to people, and the supply and demand is really high within that company, it's so easy to not pay your workers well enough. And that's why there's a big issue in America going on at the moment with the big corporate companies, where they're not paying their people enough, they're not giving sick leave, and so basically the whole of the American system is fucked. The homelessness is fucking insane. I befriended a homeless guy in America, and his name was Davis, and honestly, I was heartbroken, man. Like, this guy was like in his 60s or probably 70s, and he was just sleeping on the road, and just like, he was like blatantly not capable of like working for himself. The healthcare system doesn't give enough aid for people who are at the bottom, and so it's like starting from like a -5. You know what I mean? You're starting, when you start at a deficit, it's really hard to be successful in the game of capitalism. And so that's why when people always say like work hard, it's a free market, the market, this is what Gary Vee says, the market doesn't care about what you look like. But I think what we're missing there is I guess the underprivileged people that may have really good ideas, or may be in a position where it's really hard to think of really good ideas. You know what I mean? And so, and I'm not dismissing that either. I'm not dismissing the fact that that they can't do it. I'm just saying that it's not good enough to say that because I got out of the system, you can too. I think that's bullshit. You cannot expect everybody to be able to get out of that. And so that's why when I become really fucking successful, I'm gonna fucking overthrow everybody with power and reclaim the money and give it to my friend Davis. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, okay, so basically the flip side of capitalism is socialism, which is basically more state owned stuff is regulated amongst the community. And basically socialism is a precursor into communism. And basically what that means is like communism is like 100%, it's like owned by the government, and the government mandates everything. And we can see how that can become a very big problem in places such as North Korea, because in North Korea they cannot there's like nothing that they can do to like overcome their government. And so there's like bad examples of economies that have pushed for a socially based system, but have utilized that in a very fucked up way. The basis of socialism is based on the fact that like everybody deserves the right to basic needs such as water, such as safety, such as security, food, shelter over their head. Now, we can all agree that like, unless you're a fucking psycho, then you don't agree with it. But we can all agree that that is something that everybody deserves, right? Everybody deserves to have the basic needs met, 100%. However, the harsh reality is there are people that don't even have that, even in New Zealand. Like, we talk about, dysfunction in families and stuff, and that's all from like things such as like not having those basic needs. We can see how that can manifest in really fucked up ways. Dysfunctional families can, most of them come from like places where they struggle to meet their basic needs. And so like we can use I don't want to delve too much into it, but there's there's a thing called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, and basically the premise of that is, in order to transcend into the next level, you'll need to have like your foundation sussed out. And it doesn't actually mean that you cannot transcend to the next level. It just basically means that it becomes harder. Now those needs are let me just pull it up. So basically what it is the basic needs is your physiological needs, which is like food, water, warmth, and rest. The second step to that is your safety needs, so security and safety. The third step to that, in order to get onto the next level, is love. So, you know, a lot of those things we take for granted because, like, it's become a everyday life. Like, we have the ability to love. We have the ability to be prosperous. And that's only because, like I'd say 99% of the time, we're able to transcend that based on what we have underneath. And I want to come back to this mindset, which is like head down, bum up. It is what it is. Let's just try and beat the system. It's a free market. Like, you know, all the shit. Like, let's wipe away all the excuses. But I think what actually ends up happening is we're not very critical of like the society that we live in. We shouldn't have to live in a society where we have to work harder because there's racial issues, because, you know, we're born in a poor family. You know what? I think that's like an excellent way to overcome that stuff. But I also think there are a lot of people who have overcome that stuff and they sit on their high horse and they say, I've done it, why can't you? And I get it. I totally get it. Because I used to be one of those people where I said, I fucking worked hard. Like, why should I give you like more of my money? And you can see how that transfers into society, right? Where you have the rich people at the top and they're like, I worked hard for this, why can't you? The good thing about capitalism, right? Don't quote me on this, is that we've become really, really good at producing a lot of stuff. Our production levels have gone through the roof since the Industrial Revolution, since the introduction of division of labor. Back in the days, right, they used to be like watchmakers where they would have one person focusing on making one watch, and it'll take him like a whole day. I think it was this guy named Adam Smith or some shit. So basically what happened is there was this new thing called the division of labor, which is like, in the production of this watch, if we could like split up this production into like 10 different stages and have one person on every stage focusing on one thing, they become very, very efficient at that one thing, as opposed to one person making one watch. So what happened is it went from one person producing one watch, or like say 10 people producing 10 watches, to 10 people producing like 1,000 watches, because when you're doing one thing like the whole time, it's super fast, and like I get it, and it's just like, fuck, that's amazing. But what happened is you began to exploit workers like that. And so of course capitalism is all about profit and how much money you can make with whilst being efficient as well. And yeah, that's like, I guess that's like the dark side of capitalism as well, which is the exploitation of workers and laborers. And then so for me, the critique of that is how can you expect somebody to become prosperous, to have purpose in their life, when all they do is this one job? And you know, this comes off one of Karl Marx's criticisms of capitalism, which is that exactly. We're human beings, you know what I mean? Like we should have the ability to be free and to be prosperous. That basically is how I see it. I've talked a lot, but I really want to cover a lot of other things. But I want to try and keep this like under 30 minutes too. All right. So for me, it's like, is profit ethical? It's a rhetoric that I want to give out to everybody. is making money off other people. I mean, like, I feel like we've lost the essence. Well, actually, I don't think we've ever figured out how to become advanced. I feel like, it reminds me of, that quote where what if the solution to cancer is buried in the mind of an African boy in poverty. Now, not to generalize Africa, because Africa is a continent, right? Let's say an African boy in Zimbabwe. How do we get the best of human beings within the system of capitalism, or within a mixed system? New Zealand is seen as a mixed system where the state controls some things, and capitalism, there is some space for businesses to capitalize on, things. But then also, when it comes to mixed economies, there's corruption that could happen, right? But I think that it's with everything, right? There's corruption everywhere. It's just where is it less likely to be corrupt? If that makes sense. Where is it less likely to fuck up? Less likely to fuck up. Okay, so basically, I just want to leave this with you. I don't have a say where I am right now. I'm still learning. If there's anything that I believe in, it's overcoming inequality and inequity in our people. When I say our people, I'm talking about Pacific people. I'm talking about Māori, people of colour. And also overcoming that inherent bias, inherent racism that's happening, because that really is fucking up our people, and it becomes a vessel that can be used in the system of capitalism to fuck over our people. And so what we should be trying to do in this, there's so many different things, there's so many different solutions, but the only solution that I'm convinced with is climbing the system, or being really good at the system, so we can make those changes in the system. And so part of the work that I'm doing is, or the part of the work that I really want to do is, be in a position where I am financially okay, where I'm able to have those basic needs met, but also try and educate our people as well, and also overcoming the system by living in a world of capitalism where I'm selling my services as a filmmaker to make money so I can live. And there is no perfect system, I guess, but there's a lot of critique that we can look into when it comes to the world of capitalism. All right, thank you guys so much for listening in. This is the end of episode 2, The World on Capitalism.